All right, what do you do when your job asks you to do something that just feels wrong? When it puts you in a position where you have to compromise your principles. Today, we're going to break down a really practical framework for making the right call in those super tough situations. Okay, so picture this. You're an engineer, you've just discovered a flaw in a bridge. Not a small one, but a real, critical public safety risk. But then your boss, the person who signs your paychecks, tells you to just keep it quiet. I mean, people's lives are literally on the line, but hey, so is your job. So, what's the right call? This is so much more than just a technical problem, right? It's a real test of character. How in the world do you even start to tackle a decision this heavy? Well, when you're faced with what feels like an impossible choice, you need more than just good intentions. You need the right tools. And look, it's not about finding some magic answer that solves everything. It's about having a reliable process. And that whole process, it starts with getting a handle on two really fundamental ideas. And that brings us to a couple of words we throw around all the time, but often get mixed up: morals and ethics. The absolute easiest way to think about them is like this. One is your own personal compass, and the other is the external rulebook everyone else is following. Let's really dig into what that means. So, let's start with morals. These are your personal principles. It's that internal code that you live by. And they're shaped by everything, right? Your upbringing, your experiences, your beliefs. The word itself actually comes from the Latin word for custom, which is kind of perfect because your morals are basically the customs that define your individual character. And this isn't some abstract philosophical thing. We're talking about real stuff, like always trying to speak the truth or refusing to cheat even if you could get away with it. That's your morals in action. And here's the thing, they aren't set in stone. Your morals can totally change and evolve as you learn and grow. Ethics, though, that's the other side of the coin. They're external. These are the rules that a group puts on you. So think about a doctor's code of conduct, or your company's HR policies, or just, the law. The word comes from the Greek ethos, which means character, because these rules really define the character of an entire profession or a whole community. Okay, so let's put it all together. Morals, that's your internal compass. It's personal. Ethics, that's the external rulebook, defined by a group. Your morals can shift as your beliefs change, but ethics are usually more fixed by whatever culture or profession you're in. And getting this difference, really getting it, is the absolute first step to figuring out what our engineers should do. All right, so now we have our compass, our morals, and our rulebook, our ethics. So what now? How do we actually use these things when we're in a crisis? Let's walk through a super clear, actionable framework that'll help you find some clarity. First things first, you gotta recognize what you're even dealing with. A true moral issue isn't just a technical puzzle with one right answer. For our engineer, this problem isn't just about load calculations and spreadsheets. No way. It's a clash between huge competing values, like public safety, loyalty to your boss, and, let's be honest, self-preservation. So this whole framework really boils down to 4 steps. Step 1 is recognition. You just have to see that, hey, there's a moral issue here. Step 2 is analysis. You gotta logically look at all the arguments from every side. 3 is imagination. This is where you brainstorm creative solutions. Think outside the box, beyond just the obvious 2 choices. And finally, number 4 is to act with integrity. You make a choice based on strong principles and you're honest about it. And while you're going through those steps, there are 3 things you absolutely have to keep in mind. First, your viewpoint has to be consistent and based on facts. We call that moral coherence. Second, you've got to be able to explain your thinking clearly. That's moral communication. And this last one is so important. You have to respect that other good, smart people might see it differently. You have to have respect for that diversity of thought. Okay, so we've got the tools and we've got the framework. Enough with the theory, right? Let's get practical. Let's take this whole system and go right back to our engineer, who's still stuck trying to figure out what to do about that bridge. So how does all this actually help our engineer? Well, instead of just panicking, they can start applying the steps. First, they recognize the moral issue. Check. Then they analyze it, they think through the risk to the public versus their duty to their boss. Then, and this is key, they use their imagination. Is it really just a choice between staying quiet or blowing the whistle? Maybe not. Maybe there's a third option, like carefully documenting everything and escalating it to a higher authority in the company.
And this, right here, is the most crucial point of all. This framework? It's not a magic calculator that just spits out the right answer. That's not what it's for. Its real power is that it gives you a process to get to a decision that's well reasoned, that's consistent, and that you can defend, one that you can stand by with integrity.
And really, that's the heart of it, isn't it? Professional ethics isn't about knowing all the easy answers. It's about having the courage and the tools to ask the really hard questions, to actually think them through, and then to act with integrity, especially when it's difficult. So the next time you're facing one of those impossible choices, you'll have more than just your gut feeling to go on. You'll have a real framework, real tools to help you ask the right questions. The only question left is, what will yours be?